The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the Global Defense Academy, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors. Fiza adjusted the simple, earth-toned bracelet on her wrist as she walked toward the combat training hall, her footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. It was her first day at the academy, and she could already feel the weight of 1,000 judging eyes. The bracelet had been her grandmother's, a modest thing made of clay beads and a single copper charm etched with an ancient symbol that looked like intertwined roots forming a perfect circle. Her grandmother had pressed it into her palm the night before she passed away, whispering words Fiza could barely understand. When the earth remembers, wear this with pride. As Fiza entered the training hall, conversations died midst. Dozens of cadets in their pristine uniforms turned to stare at the girl in the simple gray tunic, her dark hair pulled back in a practical braid. Among them stood Stein, the academy's golden boy tool, confident, with sharp blue eyes that seemed to assess everything in a single glance. "Look at that bracelet," someone snickered from the back. "Did she make it in pottery class?" Laughter rippled through the group. Fiz's cheeks burned, but she kept her head high and found a spot near the training mats. She had expected this. The Global Defense Academy was reserved for the elite, for children of generals and politicians, for those born into legacy families. She was here on a scholarship, a nobody from a forgotten village in the northern mountains. "Maybe it's a good luck charm," another cadet jeered. "She need it." Stein watched the scene unfold with a slight frown. He didn't join in the mockery, but he didn't stop it either. There was something about the new girl that intrigued him, the way she stood perfectly still despite the taunts. Like a tree weathering a storm. The double doors at the far end of the hall burst open, and Instructor Kale strode in. He was a legend at the academy, a former special operations commander with more combat medals than anyone could count. His presence commanded instant silence. The man was built like a fortress, with a shaved head marked by 3 parallel scars that ran from his temple to his jaw. "Line up," his voice boomed across the hall. The cadets scrambled into formation. Fiza took her place at the end of the line, trying to make herself invisible. Instructor Kale began his usual first-day inspection, walking slowly down the line, examining each cadet with those cold gray eyes that seemed to see straight through to your bones. He stopped in front of Stein first. "Stein, Aldrich, your father was one of my best soldiers. Let's see if you inherited anything besides his name." "Yes, sir," Stein replied, standing even straighter. Kale moved down the line, offering brief comments or criticisms. Then he reached Fiza. His boots stopped directly in front of her. She kept her eyes forward, barely breathing. "Name?" he demanded. "Fiza Nazreen, sir. Scholarship student." "Yes, sir." There was a pause. Fiza could feel his gaze burning into her. Then she heard his breath catch a sharp, barely audible sound. The entire hall seemed to hold its collective breath. Instructor Kale was staring at her wrist. His face had gone completely white, all color draining from his battle-hardened features. His hand, which had been casually resting at his side, now trembled slightly. Those cold gray eyes that had faced down enemies without flinching were now wide with something that looked terrifyingly like fear. Where his voice came out as a hoarse whisper. He cleared his throat and tried again, louder this time. "Where did you get that bracelet?" The mockery in the room evaporated instantly. Every cadet sensed the shift in atmosphere. This wasn't the Instructor Kale they knew, the unshakable, fearless commander. This was a man who looked like he'd just seen a ghost. Fiz's mouth went dry. It was my grandmother's, sir." Kale took a step back, his hand unconsciously moving to the scars on his face. "Your grandmother, what was her name?" "Amara Nazreen, sir." The name seemed to hit him like a physical blow. He stumbled backward, and Stein instinctively moved forward, concerned their instructor might actually collapse. Kale waved him off, but his eyes never left the bracelet. "That symbol," Kale said, his voice strained. "The Terran knot. I haven't seen that in 20 years. The hall was so quiet that Fiza could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She looked down at the simple copper charm she'd worn every day since her grandmother's death, seeing it now through different eyes. "Sir, I don't understand your grandmother," Kale interrupted, his voice gaining strength but tinged with something that sounded like reverence. "Was Amara of the Northern Watch?" Fiza nodded slowly, confused. "She lived in the mountains. She never talked about her past." A strange smile crossed Kale's scarred face, not quite happy, but filled with complex emotion. "She wouldn't have. That was the oath we all took." He straightened up, seeming to regain his composure, though his eyes still held that haunted look. The Northern Watch was an ancient order, older than this academy, older than the current government. We defended the realm from threats that most people don't even believe exist anymore. Stein exchanged glances with the other cadets. This wasn't in any history book they'd studied. Kale addressed the entire hall now. 20 years ago, we faced an invasion from the rifted tier between worlds that opened in the northern mountains. Amara Nasreen was our commander. She was the greatest warrior I've ever known. She sealed the rift, but we all thought she died doing it. Fiza felt tears prick her eyes. Her quiet grandmother, who had taught her to garden and make tea, who had seemed so ordinary, so gentle. The Terran knot, Kale continued, pointing at her bracelet, was only given to those who held the ancient knowledge, who could channel the Earth's own energy as a weapon. There were 12 of us now. He paused, looking at Fiza with an intensity that made her shiver. Apparently, there's one left who carries the legacy. The mockery from earlier seemed like a distant memory now. Every cadet stared at Fiza with new eyes, not with contempt, but with awe and not a small amount of fear. Stein was the first to speak. Sir, what does this mean? Kale's expression grew grave. It means that Amara knew something. She didn't give that bracelet to her granddaughter as a simple keepsake. She gave it as a warning, a preparation. He looked directly at The rift seals don't last forever. If you're here, wearing that symbol, it means your grandmother believed it was time for the watch to rise again. Fiza touched the bracelet, feeling its weight differently now, not as a burden, but as a responsibility passed down through blood and sacrifice. Tomorrow, Kale announced to the class, your training begins in earnest, but for Cadet Nasreen, there will be additional instruction. We have much to discuss about your heritage. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. And anyone who mocks that bracelet again will answer to me personally. That symbol has been protecting all of you since before you were born. As he left, the hall erupted in whispers. Fiza stood still, processing everything, when she felt a presence beside her. Stein had approached, his earlier aloofness replaced with something like respect. I'm sorry, he said simply. About earlier, about not stopping them. Fiza met his eyes and saw genuine regret there. It's okay, you didn't know. None of us did. He glanced at her bracelet. But I'd like to know more. About the watch, about your grandmother. If you're willing to share. For the first time since arriving at the academy, Fiza smiled. I'd like that. I have a feeling I'm going to need allies for whatever's coming. As the other cadets gave her a respectful distance, Fiza looked down at the simple earth bracelet one more time. What had seemed like a reminder of a quiet, simple woman was actually a legacy of warriors who had stood between the world and darkness. That her grandmother's whispered words finally made sense. When the earth remembers, wear this with pride. The earth was remembering, and Fiza was ready to answer the call.